Hello, everyone. Welcome to Theatre Latté Da's first ever live online event. My name is Alyssa Adams, and I'm the Associate Artistic Director at Theatre Latté Da. And I am here live at the Ritz Theatre with Artistic Director Peter Rothstein. We are standing on the set of La Bohème, which was the production that we were just about to open before the world changed. Peter, how does it feel to be here?
You know, I've been coming to the Ritz about once a week for the past couple of months to get a script or gather some research materials. And every time I come, I step into the performance space and just check in on the set of Bohème, where Michael Hoover's beautiful world is waiting for us to return. Been thinking a lot about La Bohème because we never got to opening night. We did our final preview and then decided best to shut down. But La Bohème is about a group of artists who come together, who learn to practice compassion and learn to hold each other up in times of crisis or adversity. And to be honest, I can't imagine the power it will have when we can finally share La Bohème with all of you. But in the meantime, I'm very excited about this next chapter at Latté Da, where we can do something we've always done, but with more rigor, more intention, and that's focusing on our playwrights, our composers, and our lyricists. And Alyssa and I are really excited to share with you some of the projects we have in the pipeline.
In just a moment, you're going to get a chance to hear more from Peter about the history of Theatre Latté Da's development of new work, as well as about Next Up, which is our New Works lab that we will be embarking on. And you'll get to hear from some of the artists that are involved in the lab. After that, we will be back here at the Ritz for a live Q&A. While you are hearing the artists speak, if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, you can enter questions into the chat. And when we return, we will try to answer as many of those questions as we have time for. So we will see you in a moment and enjoy hearing from the artists of Next Up.
Nothing gets me more excited than bringing a dynamic, smart group of theater artists together to create something new. From the very beginning, Theatre Latté Da has invested in new and adventurous musical theater, and some of our most successful productions have been work we developed and premiered. Productions like Knock and A Christmas Carol Peterson's Steerage Song, 5 Points, and All Is Calm. Like my theater colleagues around the country and around the globe for that matter, we've been trying to plan for this next chapter until artists and audiences can safely gather again. Developing new musicals, new operas, new plays with music is something we can do safely right now. And it's a way to keep at least some of our theater artists working. And perhaps selfishly, I want our composers, our playwrights, and our lyricists to be alive to this moment, because the theater is my church. It's where I go to find meaning and to find hope. I've never felt so far away and yet so close. I'm painfully aware of the distance between my family and my friends and my colleagues. And at the same time, I feel like the world is smaller than ever before. If this pandemic has taught me one thing, it's that this world is profoundly interconnected. There are no politics, no religion, no language, no legislation, no wall that can ultimately divide us from one another. This global event will reshape the way we relate to each other and the planet, and it should reshape the theater as well. We will be asking our writers to be alive to this moment. How does our current reality inform the themes, the characters, the psyche of the stories we tell? We're calling the program Next Up because we're looking to the future, and we have a robust and exciting slate of projects in the pipeline. We'd love to highlight a few of them, and so we've asked some of the creators to share with you what they're working on and what they're excited about.
Hi, I'm crap at extemporaneous speaking, so I'm just going to read this description. My apologies. The Mississippi Project is a play with music that will explore a series of events that occurred between August of 1926 and December of 1927. These events include Paul Robeson giving a series of concerts featuring Negro spirituals, Showboat opening in New York City, boasting the first racially integrated cast on Broadway, and the displacement of 700,000 Americans due to floodwaters, 500,000 of those being African American. At the time, these events may have seemed unrelated, but looking at them now, nearly 100 years later, a cohesive and compelling narrative begins to emerge. One about white and black bodies and power dynamics, representation, stereotype, and tokenism, both good and not so good intentions. It is a narrative that is sadly incredibly relevant and resonant today. The Mississippi Project will ask the following metaphorical questions. What do we do when, as bluesman John Hooker sang, it rains and rains both night and day? What do we do when the levees break? Who do we save? And who do we let drown?
Hi, Frances Cabrini. We kind of all know that name, but do you ever wonder who that was? Peter came to me a little while ago and said, have you ever thought about Frances Cabrini? Do you know who she is? And I said, well, I know her name's on churches, it's on hospitals, it's on that housing project, Cabrini Green in Chicago. And he said, she was this unbelievable powerhouse of a nun. The youngest of 13, frail in childhood, told by a bishop that she was really too weak to join the sisterhood, went on to found her own order, made 23 trips across the Atlantic to the United States. She is the patron saint of immigrants. I'm going to find out everything I can about her. And then we're going to present you a play, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be interesting, and hopefully moving as well. Here, just a little known fact. I wanted to be a nun in 3rd grade. Like, really. Also, a little obvious fact. This is hair that is a month past a haircut. See, no vanity. I'm on my way to being a nun.
Johnny Schicchi is actually taken from a snippet. The story of Johnny Schicchi is taken from a snippet from Dante's Inferno. So it's usually set in 1299 Florence, but we're setting it in modern day Miami, Florida.
Because nothing's funnier than Florida.
And Miami scans with Firenze, which is the Italian for Florence.
Yes. And inside the opera, there's a tiny, tiny little love story, and we're expanding that.
Through a prologue, right?
Yes.
We're doing a prologue.
Yes. And to do that, we're writing new material, and we're sourcing some other Puccini.
Yeah. We're going to use some of Puccini's Requiem, some of his songs that became famous opera ensembles or arias later on. And the prologue will take place like the hour before this guy, Buoso Donati, dies. So it's about Buoso, it's about the two characters who fall in love, it's about the family, it's all a setup so
and
that the opera kicks in.
And about money and greed.
Money and greed.
We've been working together forever. I mean, not on this, but in our lives. We've done a lot.
Yeah, we used to do this for the opera projects that Theatre de la Jeune Lune produced starting in the 90s. Yeah. And we always had a great time. And Peter had the great idea to put us together for this Johnny Schicchi project. And it's been really fun so far.
Yeah, we haven't seen each other, but it's
been weird. The only thing is that Steve hates this opera, and I don't understand why you can't.
It's the reason people do this opera, and it's just like.
But no, there's it's more than that.
I can't.
It's in English, and this woman, Steve, please.
Can't we cut that? We can cut that, I think.
All right, all right.
I first had the great pleasure of meeting Terrence when he came to the opening night of a ragtime that Peter and I were working on. And it was surreal and amazing. And he was generous and kind as you'd hope he would be. So when Peter called to tell me that Terrence was asking us to work on his new play about Sergei Diaghilev and Vaslav Dujinski, you say yes. To get to work on a play about these two important figures in the history of ballet and the history of dance was a great challenge and a great gift to spend that time with Terrence, putting movement to this story that he wanted to tell. And so in the Next Up lab, we are going to have a chance to explore a pivotal moment of dance that Terrence and Peter came to in their last meeting together. We'll be working on where and when this moment happens in the play, and how do we capture through movement this beautiful and complicated relationship, using their bodies in the space to really show through the art form that they both loved and Terrence loved what it means to be an artist and in this kind of a relationship. It is such an honor and so good for my soul to be able to work on this play in this moment and continue to engage with Terrence's words. He was a giant of the theater, that's true, but he was also a man, a person like the rest of us trying to navigate through this world. And we are so grateful for his words that actually help us navigate it better. And I cannot wait to get back in that room. Thanks.
Hello from Oakland. We are the Kilbanes. My name's Dan Moses.
And I'm Kate Kilbane.
Hello from Brooklyn. I'm Jessie Austrian.
And I'm Noah Brody.
And the four of us are so thrilled and honored to announce that Theater Latté has awarded us with the Next Generation Commission to make a brand new musical together.
We have been wanting a chance to create something together for a while, and we are so thrilled to have this opportunity to do that.
And Latté has given us the chance to really have wide-ranging conversation about what we want this story to be about. And we discovered in our dialogue that the four of us are really interested in the experience of American women at different moments in history. And so we're starting with that broad idea and now diving deep into conversation about it.
We're thrilled at the opportunity to get to work with all the Twin Cities actors and with everyone at Theater Latté. And this is Tabitha. She's literally the next generation.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Thank you for those of you that are already starting to submit questions to us. Our first question comes from Izzy. And Izzy would like to know, where do playwrights get the idea for something to lend itself to a musical?
Well, that's a great question. It's a big question. I obviously can't speak for every playwright, but in the case of these particular projects that are part of the first launch of Next Up, it's a combination of playwrights coming to us with ideas of stories they want to tell, or Alyssa and I generating ideas and then putting the team together. So for example, the Showboat project, that's been an idea. The Mississippi project, that's been an idea I've been playing with for a number of years. And we were saying, who's the right person to tell that story, to help drive that, and really help us shape that idea. And Harrison, who we have a long history with, felt like the perfect match. Other times, playwrights will come to us and say, hey, we have an idea to either adapt this story, or there's this historical character we're interested in exploring. I used to think almost anything could be good subject for a musical if the creators are smart. Except I thought stories where a repressed character was at the center might not be such a great subject, because when you sing, it's often the heart of a character, right? They're revealing their heart. And so characters that are kind of laden with repressed characters, I think can struggle to sing. But then came along Spring Awakening and threw that all out the window. So I do think if it's really the right team, almost anything can actually be great source material for a musical.
But sometimes that can be, that's the first step of the process, and it can take a while. As you just heard from the Kilbanes and Jessie Austrian and Noah Brody, who received our Next Generation Commission, they are in the process of considering stories from a lot of different sources, historical as well as memoirs of people, and fiction as well. So front-loading that process and making sure that the story that you're going to embark on feels good and like it's going to take you the whole distance is a really important first step. Another question from Lewis. How is developing a musical different from developing a play?
A musical typically takes a long time to develop. And I think longer on average than a play, even though we know obviously there's playwrights who can work a lifetime on a given script. But there are so many different elements in a musical to get right. And people have to be in the room together. They have to collaborate together. You have a composer, a lyricist, a playwright. You also, in a musical, often they're spectacle driven. So you have designers sometimes having a major voice in the creative or the generative process, choreography. There's just so many different players. So they take a long time to get all those people on the same page, to balance all of those elements. The other thing is musicals sing, and there's a band. And so in a play, often when I'm directing a workshop of a new play, we can gather a great group of actors together and we can sit down and hear a play in an afternoon, and a playwright can respond, make some rewrites, come back the next day, hear a new draft of the script. In a musical, we spend the better part of a week just learning the score before the writers can even hear their work, right? So they just take a lot longer than a play.
Thanks, Peter. We have more questions coming in from Kevin. Kevin's question is, will we be doing Terrence McNally's play or a dance piece based on the play? I'm assuming this question comes from hearing Kelly Foster Warder talk about the role that choreography plays in Terrence McNally's play Immortal Longings. But Peter, do you want to talk about how dance fits into the context of the play?
Absolutely. We will be working on the play and the dance together in workshops. So Terrence's play is a play with music and dance. There's a live pianist on stage. And we did a production of it at the Zach Theater in Austin, Texas last summer. And we had 4 ballet dancers and an onstage pianist in that production. And Terrence and I were actually slated to meet the day Terrence sadly died. But we had been meeting since the production last summer in Texas. And Terrence came upon this idea that the 2 main characters, Nijinsky and Sergei Diaghilev, never actually danced together. In fact, we cut a scene where Sergei dances at the end of Act 1, so we actually don't see Diaghilev dance. And he thinks that could be perhaps the climax or this culminating moment that the play is driving to. We think it could happen in a couple different places in the play. So Tom Curtihe, Terrence's husband and producer, and I have been talking about how do we continue to get the play Terrence wanted, the play Terrence was working towards. So we will be working on both the play, where this dance lives inside of it, and what text needs to surround it in order for it to hopefully do what Terrence dreamed it would.
We have a question from Mary, and Mary would like to know if all of you in the audience will be able to get to see some of these readings. And we are working on that. It is our intention to find every way possible to involve you in this process. So until we can gather again, we will be finding ways to send you updates on the workshops that are happening and to continue to hear from the artists that are involved, those including those that you just heard from tonight. So we will keep you posted, but the audience is an extremely important part of this process. Peter often refers to the audience as the scene partner in a musical theater piece. Do you want to say more about that?
Yeah, I think there's, I learned a great lesson. I was working with Alyssa at Children's Theater Company on the world premiere of Disney's High School Musical. And we did the first preview, and we did the opening number, and the audience froze. No one applauded. And I thought, I know how to build to an applause. Like the actors froze, the band did a big button, the lights changed, everything was right, but no one applauded. And we thought, what did we do wrong? And we realized, most of those kids in the audience were 5 or 6 years old. They've never been to the theater before. They don't clap for their television in their living room. But it made me realize, wow, the audience actually is a scene partner. They're a vital, vital collaborator. And so we need an audience. The first preview, I often say to the actors, I'm going to have a ton of notes tomorrow, or I'll say to the writers, be ready for a lot of changes tomorrow. Because as a director, I feel like I hear the play in some ways for the first time when there's an audience. And there's obvious things like this laugh landed, or they laughed at something we didn't think they would laugh at, or they don't applaud when we think they're going to applaud. But there's something, actually, I can't lay my finger on. There's something that happens when you have a multitude of people lending their eyes and ears to a given story, a given event at the same time in the same place. That is the power of what we do. And we need an audience in order to ultimately be theater and ultimately learn what works, what doesn't. So as Alyssa said, we'll be looking for every opportunity to engage audiences in this process.
We have a great question from Karina. On average, how many songs are created for musicals that never make it to the stage? And when does it make sense to tell the story through song versus dialogue?
Wow, 2 big questions.
Thanks, Karina.
Yeah. You know, Theater Latté Da's very first production, the first thing that Denise Prosek, who founded the company with me, and I produced was a show called Lost in Boston. And it was all songs that were cut from shows on their way to Broadway. In the golden days of musical theater, the golden age, most shows would try out in Boston, then move into New York. So Lost in Boston was a collection of all these amazing songs, some that became great American standards that were cut from a show. And so thousands and thousands of songs, and that can be a painful process. After a preview of 5 Points, premiere we did a couple years ago, we realized, wow, that character cannot die. and in Act 2, a character died, and there was a great number surrounding this character's death, and we realized the climax of the show will never work if this character dies early in Act 2. We could feel that in the audience.
And someone sings about it.
And someone sings about it, exactly. So great songs often die for the greater good. When something should become a song and when it should stay a scene, you know, I think that really gets to the heart of why music inside this story and why do the characters sing. So, you know, there's so many different sets of rules. In cabaret, there are performance songs, for example, where Sally Bowles is performing in a club or the MC is performing. And then there's character songs where the characters just sing because we're in a heightened reality of the musical theater. And so I think, if, for example, there's 2 sets of rules of why characters sing. And so I think the writers need to get their head around why do the characters sing and what motivates a song inside the musical. Where they begin and end, I often feel like unless a song is a soliloquy and it's about a character's internal progression, a song needs to propel you much further than a scene alone could. So a scene might be the morning of a wedding, and by the time the scene's done, the bride's in her dress and out the door. If it's a song, they've already had their first kid. You know, like a song can just propel much more story and contain much more narrative quickly.
Thank you, Peter. We've got questions coming in, so let me find some more here. Julie would like to know, other than being virtual, how is Next Up different than Next?
Great. So Next is Latté Da's kind of umbrella term or word for all of our new work. And so sometimes that's behind closed doors workshops, sometimes that's commissioning writers where we pay writers to say, we want you to spend the next few months writing rather than doing a day job. So here's some money, go work. And then we do the Next Festival once a year. And in the Next Festival, we ask writers if their work is ready for the audience to be a scene partner, for the audience to be a collaborator. Is there enough of their piece there that getting an audience response or the focus of a room full of people, is that going to be beneficial to the process? So we've already been doing all sorts of different things under the umbrella of Next. Unfortunately, because we can't safely gather, the Next Festival won't happen this summer. But we will keep doing what we've been doing. And again, looking for any opportunity to to open that up virtually or gathering when possible.
You know, Peter, I would also add to that, while the next up and this idea of looking at a very deliberate way of spending the foreseeable future, or some of the foreseeable future, workshopping new work came out of our questions as a company about how to continue to employ artists and work with artists and keep forwarding the form of musical theater during this time. And the lab is a way that, because we do think that we can gather actors for readings and workshops to enable playwrights and composers to get a feel for their work. I think it also, the idea of next up, when we looked at how many projects we had that needed some time and attention, and that we were really excited to have a chance to continue to work on, we discovered that there were 8, and sometimes it feels like more are coming on our plate every day. So the idea of next up very much feels like a response to this current moment, but I think it also is the next evolution of new work at Latté Da, and a way of just noticing and taking care of and feeding all of these projects that artists have been dreaming about, that Peter has been dreaming about, and to spend some concentrated time. So the form will be virtual, but the spirit is really to gather together all of these pieces that have been things that we've been wanting to work on and have been sort of banging at our door, the doors of our imaginations.
Good.
All right. I think we have time for one last question.
I will say, just piggybacking on Alyssa there, when we decided that we needed to close Bohème, immediately I said to Michelle Booster, our managing director, let's keep all the monies that we have towards new work sacred right now, because it's one thing that we can do safely right now is write. While we can't put on a production, while we can't design sets and build sets and welcome an audience into a space, we can have writers write. And so in the last couple of months, we've actually commissioned, probably 10 writers actually in the last couple of months, where we've been able to actually pay them to get writing. And that's felt really great as a company to be able to do that.
We're going to wrap up for tonight. Thank you so much to everybody who has submitted questions. Please keep your eyes open on social media for opportunities to find out what's going on with the artists in the Next Up Lab. We expect to see some of these projects in the next festival, and ultimately to premiere on the stage of Latté Da. Peter, any final words that you would like to say?
I just want to call out our donors because new work is expensive, and we spend often years working on a project before we ever sell a ticket. And we can only do that because Minnesotans support the arts. We're an amazing state of folks who believe that arts are vital to the fabric of our society. And we can only do that because of the support of foundations, the Minnesota State's Arts Board, the National Endowment for the Arts, and many, many individual donors. So we've only been able to do what we do because of their investment. And we're only able to launch something like Next Up because of our faith that they will continue to support us. So donors, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I also want to call out our board of directors who have made sure that we make these difficult decisions responsibly, but have also encouraged us to be bold. And our board has shown tremendous leadership in these past couple of months. And I need to call out all artists who call Minnesota home. Hang in there. We need you, and our hearts are with you. And thank you for being here. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Good night.